This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, your Voice of Respectonomics, and it's part of the Living Asset series. We call it Living Asset because we think of the human being as the living asset. And as you may know, the proposal of Respectonomics is to dignify the human being. And our business is, of course, to honor fairness. And with that in mind, we've talked in a couple of the other series. We've talked about the fear of failure. We've talked about the fear of looking foolish. We've talked about the fear of rejection. And this is a more complex one that we're talking today. It's called the fear of success. That sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Because if you think of success, you kind of think it must be something that is enjoyable, it's something that's wonderful, it's a word that in its very origins is to do with achieving, as overcoming and obtaining something that is very desirable. So if we think of success as being something that is desirable that we all want, how would in fact one be fearful of it? As I say, it's a contradiction. And fear of success is complex, and one of the traits to it is, to which I can speak authentically, is that one can have great success in a particular adventure or project, have great success, and at the conclusion of it say, I can't do that again. And you go around proving it, that you can't do it again. Your performance declines accordingly, and you end up with this cycle that looks like success followed by failure, failure followed by success. And it is, of course, if you look at it in a sort of rhythmical sense of being successful and then failing, that in fact is, at one level, you'd say it's unproductive. It's also exhausting. And it also means, of course, that our talents and our potential are not getting their full venting. So how does fear of success come into being? What we've talked about a characteristic of it, this cyclical nature. But one of the things about it is that idea of perfection. I can't complete this project until I know every single thing about it. Respectonomics could very easily fall into that bracket because it in fact is a never-ending compendium of ideas. It's organic. It has neither beginning nor ending. And the answer is that if we had fear of success in Respectonomics, we'd be in a problem. We wouldn't be able to keep it going. Fear of success is a sense that you want two things, really. One is that you want the perfection. You want to know everything before you actually tackle it. Typically someone who's going to make a presentation says, I can't do this until I have read all 600 pages of the product summary. This isn't an excuse to say you go in there winging it, but it does, of course, create the sense that if the concentration and the focus is on perfection, there's a risk at some point of the job never getting done even. So that's part one. Part two, very interesting problem, is that many of us can be very successful. And all of our lives, we may have, not all of our lives, but in our lives, we may have experienced people saying, oh, well, you can't always be successful. In a matter of fact, you're not going to be successful. So there's a certain amount of push down. And it can happen from the family, by the way. But the answer is when we find ourselves thinking, well, I may not be successful, and then bingo, we are successful, we in fact can experience a sense of guilt. How can I be worthy of this success? I was told all my life I couldn't do it, and here I am doing it. In fact, I'm doing it in spades. So you get this sort of combination of guilt, you get this combination of perfection, and a lot of it traces back to the times when teachers and supervisors or whatever, they would be constantly saying, looking for perfection. And they would be saying, everything you do must be perfect and drilling it into you so that you get a sort of sense eventually of, well, knowing it can't be perfect, best thing is not even to try it. So we can get into avoidance, we can get into cyclical behavior, we can get into I am not worthy. Now, I go back to this wonderful, I can't remember the name, but it's an operetta by Gilbert and Sullivan. And in it says, below your own trumpet. And although we've all been trained not to be what you might call up on ourselves, one of the tests to fear of success, or one of the antidotes to fear of success, is to recognize what incredible capacities each of us has, and you have. Incredible. And the way you can prove that is to write down, quite literally, write down 25 things you like about you. We've always been trained not to do that, haven't we? We've always been said, oh, don't think too highly of yourself, and oh, don't get above yourself, and gosh, you could be arrogant and all that. Well, those are issues to be dealt with. But one issue that never fails is the one to recognize one's strengths. In recognizing one's strengths, and this is where the writing down the 25 things comes to the table, you write down the 25 things you like about you. It might be the way you look. It might be the way you speak. It might be the way you can compete. It can be all kinds of things. But the fascinating thing is, the more you look into this 25 items of how you like yourself, as you go down the list, you'll find out some very hidden reserves. You'll find out, you know what? I really am quite good at that. I enjoy doing that. And it's actually a humbling exercise, because you can almost sense that you didn't make it, but it has been bequested to you. It might be through your DNA, it might be through your family, it might be through your environment or your teaching, your coaching, whatever it happens to be. But it also brings us back into a sort of sense of how fortunate we are to have received all these benefits. So being appreciative of one's strengths is in itself is good. Being appreciative is also good. I don't know if you know this, but when we appreciate, when we express gratitude, we in fact change the metabolisms in our body, and we become happier, more content, more vibrant people. So being appreciative is a good thing. Being appreciative of your own talents really is an add-on benefit. And on top of all of this, I want to make one comment about recognizing oneself, because when you recognize your own strengths and you identify them, and then say, well, I think I can use those to a greater purpose, well, by every definition, you're now overcoming the fear of success. But the other thing that's happening is you are dignifying the very elements of who you are. And here's the truth. The more we dignify the elements of ourselves, the more we dignify the elements and components of others. It's a sort of mutual admiration, practically. It's reciprocal. It's accretive, meaning it grows on its own. So dignifying your strengths dignifies the strengths of others. And in a world that seems to want to be divided, it wants to be confrontational, what better message can we give to ourselves and to others that we want to dignify ourselves in a manner that our strengths become your strengths and your strengths become mine? It is a wonderful sense of symbiosis. I rest my case.